Welcome to the second episode of the Flower Podcast. I'm Nicole Wanta, and I'm here with David Ridderhoff and Scott Turek. We're going to start today by talking about the Cubs and how they went back to back to back. There's Baez, Soler, and Bryant. Tell me what you guys think of the newest additions.
Hold on, we got to pause for a moment
What?
before we start. David, I got to call you out on something.
Oh no.
Last week's episode, you said you were not excited about this Cubs spring training baseball, but as the screen's gonna pop up right now, there's gonna be a post from you showing complete excitement about the Chicago Cubs and what they've been able to do in spring training. You know what? I'm just taking this moment now that we're on the show to completely call you out.
So, are you excited?
You guys can't just leave the fourth wall up? Like, here's the fourth wall. This protects us from, our personal lives. You just broke down the fourth wall.
It had to be broken
No, it didn't
down.
have to be done. Are you guys serious?
Are you excited?
The truth comes out. I'm really excited because the Cubs prospects are amazing. I am so excited. And you know what? They went back to back to back. And then the fourth best prospect, the other huge prospect hit a home run later in the game. I'm pumped and stoked, and I'm so ready for baseball.
Looking at this. I mean, I know you always like the counterpoint stuff, but you have to just be excited. I mean, as a Cubs fan,
I'm so excited.
I have waited 21 years up to this point to see a good baseball team, and I got a little glimpse of it in 2003 with the Cubs, and that's been it. 20 out of 21 years, it's been pretty mediocre baseball.
Even as a Brewer fan, I'm kind of not excited, but I'm happy
because
for them.
it's
good. It'll be fun.
Because it's going to be fun when the Cubs play the Brewers now, especially the last few years. The Brewers have just kind of dominated the Cubs in pretty much every aspect.
Yeah.
Just remember, your third baseman came from Chicago, so.
And he's retiring after the season,
I just
too.
said
By the way,
Chicago.
as a Cubs fan, I'm really sad this is Ramos Ramirez's last season.
Very underrated Cub.
I loved Ramos Ramirez. He was a great player.
But
He
getting
was a
back
great player.
getting back on subject.
The back-to-back.
And they were all moonshots, too.
Oh my God, Soler's
Solers is still flying somewhere.
Did you hear what the police department in the city did?
What did they do?
They, I guess there was a couple officers that are actually big Cubs fans, so they went to the pitcher Trevor Bauer and gave him 3 baseballs and said these were in the streets outside of the stadium and they were holding up traffic, so thought we'd give them back to you. We know they're yours.
No.
Ouch.
Now, looking at it in one way, it's spring training. He might have been working on a pitch. A lot of times that's what you do in spring training. You practice a new pitch you're working on there, and sometimes they just come in like ducks.
You sound like my dad right now.
And
I was excited about this, and my dad
I'm trying to
spring training.
It is spring training, and I'm trying to temper my excitement a wee bit because it is spring training. But those were all moonshots.
It was against Trevor Bauer, though. We're not talking like John Jones, a high A player who never hit double A. We're talking Trevor Bauer, who's pitched in the majors before. This is the MLB pitcher who all 3 of them went off of right in a row.
Yeah, and they were all good. I think the thing I love about this Baez's swing. It's so violent. He puts everything into it. It's such a violent swing, and I love it.
We say that about pitchers a lot, where they're gonna have arm problems because of how they throw the ball. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's gonna have back problems and leg problems, and he's gonna be injured all the time. But when he is on the field, he's gonna hit 30 home runs a year, and I'm gonna love every second of it.
I can't wait.
God, I love spring training baseball, guys.
Oh, gosh.
You have no idea.
I wish I could.
Spring training
replay you
baseball
saying that.
is bae.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, this is where we end the segment. You're gonna.
Fourth wall, Scott. This isn't a segment. Come on, Scott. Do you learn nothing from this show?
Okay.
What's next, Nicole?
The NFL year started Tuesday. We're going to talk about one of the biggest free agents who is now part of the Miami Dolphins, Ndamukong Suh.
He's a Dolphin.
That's
That's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
I think, because being in Chicago market, really, you get a lot of people saying, oh, he's going to go to the Bears. Bears need defensive tackle help.
That was never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
I heard, you go back to the Lions, I heard the Dolphins and Jaguars. I heard the Raiders were going to be big players.
I honestly thought the Raiders were going to be because the Raiders got so much money to play with. I thought, you know what? You got the money. I will give you a ridiculous contract.
He's the highest paid player in defensive player in NFL history now. That's huge.
$114 million.
$60 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's unreal how much money he's getting.
So is it weird to you guys that he's being rewarded with so much money when he's known for being pretty violent on the field? What do you guys think about that?
His violence on the field, it can be looked poorly upon, but his production that he brings,
yes,
is unreal. He's best defensive tackle in the NFL by a pretty substantial margin, if you ask me.
The thing is, though, he almost got suspended for a playoff game this year. What if the Dolphins finally break through? What if the Dolphins finally make that run to the playoffs, get through the AFC East, maybe beat out the Patriots, and then, hey, you're going to play your first playoff game since, I believe, 2008, and where's your best player on defense? He's in the locker room watching because he's suspended. If that happens, all this money they used, all that, the whole regular season run, it's worthless.
Yeah.
Who cares?
And the main thing is that he's got a lot of money now to pay the fines that he's going to get. So I think he's covered with the fines.
Jeez,
but it's interesting to see what it's going to be about because a lot of teams will invest in their quarterbacks in a lot of situations like that, but they're putting all in on the defensive tackle. And tackles, and you don't play every down. You have to pull out every once in a while. Even as great as Sue is, he can't play every down. And it's interesting to see how much of an impact he's going to make in conjunction with that Dolphins defense. It's going to be interesting to see if he has the same level of success.
Yeah, I think, though, on the interior, Ndamukong Suh, on the exterior, Cameron Wake, that's up there with, you think of the best, the fact that you have somebody on the exterior that can pass rush and somebody on the interior that can run stop, that's going to create huge problems for every offensive line they face. It's not, let's not worry about pass blocking. Let's just worry about clogging up the middle, making sure the defensive tackles can help. Or let's just worry about stopping the edge rushers and let the defensive tackles try to run wild. You have to put people everywhere. There are 2 players now that you have to double team on every single down there on the field.
I'm just not sold on the Dolphins yet. And I think I got to see them play together first. I think that's going to be the big thing is how the chemistry works. A lot of times, and we can definitely know this in Chicago, you can make the big name splash, get some guys that people know, especially in the Ndamukong Suh, and it just doesn't work.
Plus, they still have Ryan Tannehill as quarterback. So.
And that's an issue. Now, Tannehill's come a long way, but I don't think he's not the answer.
No,
they haven't had a good quarterback there since Marino.
Poor team.
You guys agreeing?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't like agreeing with Scott.
It's a rare occurrence. We've agreed twice in this show already, so.
That's a lot more. We have to put down the president now. No more agreeing on things.
Okay.
Actually, we're going to talk about Lewis, so we're probably all going to agree on our next 2 topics.
Lewis University.
Okay, so we're going to talk about men's volleyball.
How about that?
They defeated number 1 Loyola.
They didn't beat them. They absolutely dominated them.
I got the Lewis shirt on, so I'm representing here. But
nice.
I have a Dolphin shirt on.
I didn't get to catch the game, but from looking at the stat sheet and everything, it was so back and forth. Didn't they have 41 different times that the score was tied?
I think it was in the 4th set. They had 21 in one set.
Yeah,
that's
21.
Unheard of.
Yeah,
unheard of.
That's just unbelievable. Just back and forth action between both teams. And Lewis have earned that number 1 seed. It was a tight game.
I think that just because it's not a Loyola or a West Coast team like BYU or Stanford, I don't think they'll be number 1, which is going to be a huge. That's going to be a giant disappointment. They deserve it, no doubt. They're the best. I think right now they're the best team in the nation when it comes to volleyball. With that being said, it's Lewis. They've only had 1 good season, and by the way, that season doesn't count, so they've had 0 huge seasons as a college volleyball program.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this group goes about it. Now you've got your big victory under your belt. You always get that big one. And it seems like every team has that one. But moving forward, is it going to keep rolling some more success because they're going to be playing Ohio State? They're going to start going into the tougher part of their schedule now. Is that going to affect their play?
I think, when you got All-Americans like Jeff Powell on your team, who's honestly one of the top probably 3 or 4, I would say, volleyball players in the country right now, just attacking. And they got Bobby Walsh, who in my opinion might be the best defensive player. He blocks everything. I forget what team they were playing, but they ended up with 22 and a half blocks. I think it was Penn State. Wow. And they 22 and a half blocks. 4 blocks a set where you get points off. It's incredible. I think they have more than enough offense and defense. I think they're the best team. I think they have more than enough All-Americans. They're almost all seniors, so they have the veteran leadership. It's going to come down to whether or not I think they just have 1 game where they have the lapse.
It'll end time. We'll have to see how that's going to happen. But right now, they're playing very, very good.
Going into it, knowing that they broke Loyola's 40-game winning streak, I think they should be pretty confident.
If I was them, I'd be confident moving forward. I think they're the best team.
I would too.
That's a good boost.
That's not bad.
And tournament-wise, I think we could be hosting it.
Yeah, we could be.
Very well could
and
be.
That's going to be
awesome.
huge if we can.
Ooh, I'd love that.
We were so close to hosting the women's basketball tournament.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay.
Look,
We're number 2. Men are number 7. Both are playing UW Parkside.
yeah,
What do you think about that?
You know, we were covering the GLVC tournament on WLRA, and I was on the trip for that. And there was a lot of confusion going into it if the men were even going to make the tournament. That was the big thing. It was where they're going to be seated.
Yeah.
And everyone seemed pretty sure that they were going to make it. But then near the end, it was kind of last second, was the day of selection day. It was kind of, we're not sure if they're going to get that number 8 seed. And they ended up getting a 7 seed. And you have to travel to UW Parkside, play UW Parkside. And I think the men, they were disappointed with the way they played in the GLVC tournament. They had a lot of turnovers of that game and just didn't play the way that they were playing the past few games. I think going into it now, you go in with no pressure. I mean, there's obviously pressure, especially this is the last time these group of seniors may ever play together. So you have that going into it, but I think there's kind of relieved. They know that was a bad game they played in the GLVC tournament, and they just move forward and see if they can make some noise in the regionals.
I will say this when it comes down to the women's team, right? And this is actually a point about the men's team, but it's also the women's team. If my facts are correct, I think over the last 3 years, there's been 2 times where the Lewis women have been the number 2 seed and lost in the first round to a 7 seed. I could be off on that, but I know it's been at least once. I know it was at least the year before I became a freshman, which had been the 2013 tournament. They were 2 seed and they lost first round. 7 seed upsets happen all the time in Division II college basketball. The men can undoubtedly walk up, play a UW Parkside team that they've played close twice this season.
Yeah.
And this is a team that plays better against great opponents. They had the rough game again in the GLVC tournament, but other than that, you look at their game against Indianapolis, they won earlier. Bellarmine, they played close. Parkside, close. That's a team that could be a 7 seed upset, a 7 seed Cinderella team, I think, moving forward.
And when you look over at the women, the couple games that they played in the GLVC tournament, they got struggled at different times. In the first game, in the opening round, they went hot in the last few minutes of the game, and that's really what pushed them to victory. In the second game, the games that I saw in the GLVC tournament, they weren't playing at the level that they're capable of. And that's the main thing. I think there's been concern for the girls' team is that, a lot of times teams just hit a skid where they kind of lose a couple games, and you got to make those very short-lived. And I think the Flyers are hitting a skid at a bad time. They really struggle. The one thing that was definitely in favor for Southern Indiana, who they lost to in the semifinals, was that they just had size. And that's the big thing with the girls is that they don't have the size. They don't have the post player. They can play in a post, but when you have a couple of players who are 6 foot out on the court, there's definitely a struggle for the Flyers to get the points in production in the paint. So moving forward now with this team, there's no room for error. You have to make sure that everyone's clicking all cylinders.
And I think that they could very well do that. We saw early in the season, Jamie Johnson was averaging like 25 points a game. She had 2 or 3 games where she scored 30 points, which is unheard of for women's basketball. She has shown she has potential to be the spark plug to move a team forward.
And she won GLVC Player of the Year, too.
Which she deserved. Mariah Henley, I thought, was the only other person who could have taken the GLVC Player of the Year from Jamie Johnson. Those were the 2 best players in GLVC this year.
Yeah, and Mariah in the GLVC tournament did have her struggles. She really struggled to find her game, though. So moving forward now, when you look at the Flyers girls team, they're stacked. They've been playing together for about 3 years now, and this is kind of their moment that they've kind of all waited for. They got a pretty good seed going into the regionals. They didn't get to host, where they do play very well in Neil Carey, but they got to go on the road now. But I can still see them, even with a number 2 seed. At one point, they were the number 1 team in the country, and they can definitely play at that level.
And they have beat Parkside twice already.
So history is in their favor.
We hope.
I like history, but I also like progress, and I think that they're going to progress very well in this tournament. I think they're a team to watch for a Final Four or maybe even national championship berth.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be fun stuff.
That would be fun.
I'm going on the road trip with them. Hey, you think I'm joking? WLRA, LUTN, maybe they'll go with.
Maybe. We'll see what we can pull off.
I like that idea.
That wraps up our second episode of the Flyer Podcast. Don't forget to follow our Twitter account at @FlyerSports. Thanks for watching, guys.